So I have categorized my absolute worst pet peeves about having type 1 diabetes. So about 2 months ago, I posted my type 1 diabetes diagnosis story, and that was a really big deal for me. Though people in my life know and it's something I'm very public about, it's still very emotional to go back to that time in my life and bring all of those feelings up again and talk about all of them, so that took a lot out of me, but it meant the world to me to see such a really cool response. So many people were just so supportive, and then on the other hand, so many people felt supported by it, which I hoped in the back of my mind, but I didn't really believe that it was possible. It just meant so much to me. And in the comments, I did get quite a few people asking me to do the diabetes pet peeves video that I mentioned. I have had type 1 diabetes now for 10 years. Being that I'm only 23 years old, that's almost half of my lifespan at this point, which is super crazy. And in that time, I have dealt with all of the highs and lows, pun intended, and the good and the bad and the ugly of having type 1 diabetes. There are some really cool things that it's brought into my life, and then there are the really annoying things, so that's what I'm mostly going to be talking about. I've tried to categorize everything, put it all into groups that either you might relate to if you are type 1 diabetic, you might find helpful if you're new to type 1 diabetes and you might see these things come up in your life, or you might just find interesting and funny because you didn't even think about that being a possibility in someone's life. So here I am to share those things. Blood sugar issues. That sounds like a super broad and vague group, but that was the best way I could group this thought together. So what I have here are lows when I can't get food right away. That's in dumb moments where I have left my bag farther away from myself than I should have and I don't have sugar with me immediately. I end up turning into a monster. One of my best friend Gabrielle's favorite stories is that we went to Disneyland together and I became my low blood sugar self. She could tell it was happening before I even realized it was happening. I guess I dropped pretty quickly. For those who don't know, 40 is a very low number. 40 is the point where people start worrying about seizures, comas, things like that, need to get treatment immediately. I also tend to, when my blood sugar gets low, I get really stubborn and I tend to focus on one food. It's kind of like a pregnant lady craving a specific food and but it's all I'll eat. This particular day it was sweet potato fries, and at this point in my life I don't think I'd even eaten sweet potato fries before. Gabrielle looks down at my meter, she's like, "Mary, you're 43, we need to get you sugar immediately. Let's grab the nearest food cart right here." And I was like, "No, I want sweet potato fries." And she was like, "But where in Disneyland do they even have sweet potato fries? Just get this now and we'll get sweet potato fries later." I was being adamant. I pitched a fit and I screamed in the middle of a theme park. I screamed to the top of my voice, "I want sweet potato fries!" And I apparently scared small children around me, and Gabrielle was very embarrassed, and so she helped drag me across the park until we found sweet potato fries. Anyway, this one my boyfriend reminded me of because I forgot about this, but bolusing for a full meal and then not wanting to eat it all. So when I bolus, I give myself insulin for the amount of carbs that I'm going to eat, and it's best to do that 15-ish minutes before you start eating for your short-acting insulin to work. I'll do all the insulin and then I start eating, and then halfway through I'm like, I don't want the rest of this. But I have already done the insulin for this entire plate of pasta. So if I don't eat this entire plate of pasta, I'm gonna have to deal with a low blood sugar later, and I don't want to. So I will force myself to eat the plate of pasta. Doing all the right things, and yet nothing goes right. I think this is an every single day battle for most type 1 diabetics. Power to you if you're someone who's got it all figured out and you're able to do all the right things and everything goes right. I am calculating carbs, I am calculating how much exercise I've been doing, my long-acting insulin, the temperature of the room, because that affects my blood sugar, all of these factors, and I'm doing all this math, and then I give myself the right amount of insulin and my blood sugar is still high 2 hours later. And it's just... Anyway, this should have been number 1 on the list. Waking up in the middle of the night with a low blood sugar. It is the worst feeling. I guess if you're diabetic, you know the feeling, but for me, the best way I can describe it is just clammy hands, cold sweat, and I wake up with this feeling of just oh, I just want to go back to sleep. And there's this little voice in the back of my head that's you definitely need sugar immediately. And I'm but I don't want to get up out of bed and go get sugar, even if it's right next to my bed. I don't want to do it because I'm comfy And it's like, you know when you like wake up in the middle of the night and you have to pee and you like try and stay sleepy, so you're like keeping your eyes closed as you're going to the bathroom because you just like want to be able to go back to bed immediately. So it's like that, but I can't because I have to wake up, check my blood sugar, eat the right amount of carbs, and then wait, test my blood sugar again to make sure it like leveled out, and then maybe I get to go to sleep. Or if it's not good, then I have to do the whole process over again. So anyway, another one is travel. Traveling is actually really tough for me with diabetes. 3 months out of the year, for the past 3 years, I have lived in a different state. So I have to completely uproot my life, plus I travel for work a lot. So between all of those things, I am in airports a lot. I want my safety, so I want them to do everything they can to keep us safe as people, but also it's super freaking annoying that I have to account for an extra amount of time going through security at an airport that other people don't have to account for. Because if I'm wearing my insulin pump at the time, then it's going to alarm the machine, and then I have to stand there and wait until they can get a female TSA agent, and they bring her over, and then I take my pump out and I rub my hands on it, and then I put my pump away, and then they test my hands, they make sure there's nothing chemical on it that shouldn't be there, and then I wait for the test to come through, and then it says it's good. That's what happens now. Back in the day, when I would go through with my insulin pump, I would have to get a full pat down every single time I went through an airport. I have to pack like doomsday is happening every time just because I'm so panicked. Like, I don't want to be anywhere without backup supplies, and then backup supplies. So when I pack to move, I'm taking everything with me. But even when I just go for like a weekend trip, I'm taking like a whole extra like suitcase, just trying to make sure that I stay safe and healthy wherever I'm going. That's super annoying. And I actually was teased pretty mercilessly in school for having the biggest backpack out of all the other students because I was diagnosed going into my 8th grade year, and I was still very new to diabetes, so I didn't know tricks like glucose tablets. I also carried juice boxes, full on juice boxes, but I didn't just carry one, I carried like 6 of them every single day. So I had like this massive backpack that I would carry around. Oh, and then with travel also, there's the aspect of once I'm actually traveling, often a lot of ratios adjust. Trying food I haven't had before, then there's like all of that stuff. It's just difficult. It adds a lot of layers, but it's livable. But you know, it's a thing. I think some of you can relate. Okay, the next thing I have is technical stuff, meaning all the stuff to do with the technology. Technology has advanced so far from when diabetes was first discovered and diagnosed versus now. Even in the 10 years that I've been diabetic, things have changed so much scientifically, which I think is so super cool. I am so grateful to all the people who do all of the research that makes that happen because it makes my life a lot easier. But there are still some annoying factors, such as noises going off. I usually wear an insulin pump and a CGM or constant glucose monitor, and the CGM will go off when my blood sugar goes too high or when it goes too low. That's super embarrassing when that happens in something like a movie theater, or I don't know, when you're finally going to Star Wars Land for the first time and you're in the room building a lightsaber and your CGM won't stop going off at full volume and disturbing the spiritual experience for the rest of the guests in that room with you. Something like that. I don't know. Also, this is something I think I mentioned in my last video about having type 1 diabetes, and I still don't really know if this is something anybody else can relate to, so please comment if this is something you relate to. Walking into doorknobs. It's like oh, my stomach just like does a flip-flop and also sinks into my toes at the same time, because I'll walk and I forget that my tubing's all twisted out next to my hip and it's not like tucked away, and boom, I get trapped around a doorknob and I keep walking and then I just get pulled back by my own pump, and oh man, it hurts me. Also, hiding your pump. Specifically for girls, I don't know if you have this issue like I do. When I'm wearing an insulin pump and I have to wear like a super tight dress or like super tight pants or like something that's like going to show it, and trying to find a creative place to hide the insulin pump so that it's not like, what's that weird robot part she has attached to her, or is that a pager? That's another one on like the technology issue sort of, is having people assume it's a cell phone or a pager or whatever. Who even still has pagers? Seriously, like, do I look like a doctor? Do I look like I own a pager? Like, do I look like I walked straight out of the 90s? Like, I didn't walk out of the 90s, I crawled out of the 90s. Anyway, super annoying. I had a teacher once try to pull it off of me. I was like on my pump, I was like plugging numbers in, like trying to do insulin, and the teacher was like, I just said no phones, and like grabbed my pump and started to pull it off of me, and I was like, ah! that's attached to me! The next one I have is just entitled, Why? It's the most annoying parts that don't really have a category. Like, endless needles. Super pet peeve. I was terrified of needles. Now I'm not. Like, I'm fine with needles. It's not that I'm like scared of needles, but it's also like, I don't want to stick myself 35 times in a day. You know what I mean? Think you can probably relate. I don't want to be a human pincushion. Separated snacks just for me. I don't even know if that would make any sense without me explaining it, but it's probably happened to you. It definitely happened to me many, many times. Where in class, teacher would give out like candy or snacks or something, and they would like set aside special snacks for me, and they'd be like, here, have the sugar-free lifesavers instead of these cool sour gummies I'm giving everyone else. And I like want to be grateful because I'm like, thank you so much for like caring enough to give me a separate snack, but I don't want a sugar-free lifesaver. I can eat the gummy snacks, I just have to like do the math and everything, but like sugar alcohols are still a thing. I still have to do insulin even if it's a sugar-free candy if it has sugar alcohols. So again, this is like a girl thing, but like when it's that time of the month, my blood sugar goes haywire. And I usually like have a day or two before where I'll like forget that that's coming, and I'm like, why is my blood sugar being so weird and so difficult? And then I'm like, oh, like my blood sugars will just run high and I just like can't keep up with them. And it's the same thing when I have like a cold, or usually when I'm sick, my blood sugars are running high and I can't catch up with them, and then they end up dipping pretty low because usually when I'm sick I don't want to eat, and it's just like a roller coaster, and it's like no matter how much work I put in, I can't seem to get the blood sugars right. When I go to Georgia, it's super humid there, so I have to adjust all of my like numbers for that. Again, when I'm on set, the lights bring my blood sugar down. So adjusting for that is interesting on work days. Cause like I'm snacking, but then also the heat, but then also like the lights, and then also like when I'm stressed, and also if I'm crying in a scene, or also if I'm being super active in a scene. So all of that's running in the back of my mind at the same time as trying to remember all my fight choreography, at the same time as trying to remember all of my lines, at the same time as trying to think about what the next thing is that I'm supposed to be doing. All of this thing about blood sugar is running on in the back of my mind too, so fun fact. All right, and then I would say I left this one for last because this is the #1 pet peeve for me. This is the group that if I could eliminate just one group of pet peeves, I would deal with all of the rest of it if I could take this one group out. And that is other people's opinions. I don't know if you guys deal with this, but me being in the public eye and saying very publicly that I have type 1 diabetes, I've opened up that door. I did so because I want to feel the community, because I want to share this information and hopefully help someone, because I really enjoy teaching people about it. But at the same time, like, I'm opening myself up as a target for invasive questions or statements. Also just in my day-to-day life. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, when I tell them I have type 1 diabetes, people like to tell me what to do. People like to tell me what I should or shouldn't eat. People like to tell me, oh, you can't have that, or, oh, really, should you be eating that? Or, you know, I heard that you should not be doing that. What you should be doing is this. If you just eat oats and honey every day, like Oprah said, then you won't have diabetes anymore. Or if you try this new fad diet that I'm doing, it's totally changed my life. And it's like, that's great for you, but I know my body, and I appreciate your attempt to help make my life easier, but really what you're doing is just making me feel like every day, all of the hours and hours and hours and endless sleep I've lost, and math I do in my head, and I hate math, and all of these things that I endure being a human pincushion, you make me feel like none of it's enough because you know best. And I'm the dummy here. And that sucks, because I put in years of work into being able to just stay alive, being able to live my life happily and healthily and enjoy all the amazing things that I get to do. And that takes a lot of effort from me. And so it's very annoying when I feel like people just minimize that effort by saying, I know better than you. And it's like, really? Where's the 10 years of work you put in to learning to become your own nurse and dietitian? Anyway, on top of that, on top of people just telling me what I should or shouldn't eat, it's people who ask really invasive questions. Like, ever since posting the video and the Instagram post that went with it, talking about my 10-year diaversary, I have had multiple comments on multiple different Instagram posts that have absolutely nothing to do with diabetes, of people asking me what's my latest A1C. For those of you who have type 1 diabetes, you tell me if you feel this way, but to me, that is more invasive than asking my weight, age, and discussing like hot political topics. It's worse than all of that rolled into one. Like, it's so invasive and rude and just like selfish, and just like, it just feels like that person wants to know that information for their own reasons. That's not someone who knows my life, the way that I work on my health, the effort that I put in, all of these things. Like, that's someone who just wants to ask that question just to be nosy, or just to feel superior, or just to even informationally That's still rude. Actually though, if you don't know what an A1C is, that's fine. You can ask me what an A1C is. Just don't ask me what my A1C is. Even fellow diabetics have done that to me. They'll be like, well, what's your latest A1C? And then it feels competitive, and that's weird. I'm like, look, we're on the same team. We deal with the same crap all day. Why are you trying to make me feel small? Why on earth would you put down another person who you could instead connect with and relate to? And people that I know that are very close to me have asked me questions of, you know, oh, like, are you allowed to eat that? That's very different. If you're asking me what my rules are for myself, that's so different from telling me or insinuating that I'm doing something wrong that I should know better. I totally agree though that we all have room to learn. We all have room to grow. Like, the information we have about type 1 diabetes is changing constantly. The technology surrounding type 1 diabetes is changing constantly. There's so many new things that I have yet to learn, but at the same time, I've been doing pretty good for 10 years. I think I've earned myself a little bit of credit to be able to handle those things all by myself. Now, on a completely different note, I have to say, for all the things I complain about, I have to say a couple of things. One, I have type 1 diabetes. It's really hard. There are plenty of days where I am crying and asking why me and all those kinds of things because I'm human and bad days happen. But on the other hand, I have type 1 diabetes, and of all the things in the world that I could be struggling with and could be diagnosed with and could be living with, it's just diabetes. Not to minimize how life-altering it is, how difficult it is to manage, how expensive it is to manage, how consuming it can be, but it's just type 1 diabetes. Like, I can handle this. I can do this. Luckily, I have a great support system. I have people who want to learn about my health and about how they can help me. I have people who support me in all the things that I do all day. I have a great doctor. I have technology and opportunities that a lot of people in the past, especially, have not had. So all in all, I'm really lucky. I'm lucky that this is all I have. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. But if this is my struggle to overcome, not to say it's the only thing I've ever overcome in my life or the only thing I'm dealing with or the only thing I'm struggling with, because we're human. There's a lot more to it than that. But if this is my thing to have and to manage and to learn from, I think I'm very, very lucky, and I know that. And then also, on the opposite end of the pet peeves of type 1 diabetes, I do also have to mention all the cool things about type 1 diabetes. Like, I got to bring snacks with me to class, and I got to just say, oh, my blood sugar is low, and then eat in class. I did it quite a few times. Sometimes I skipped PE and I faked a low blood sugar so that I could go to the nurse's office and just sit there because it was hot outside and I didn't want to get tan because I was obsessed with Twilight. I used to get to skip the lines at Disneyland because I had type 1 diabetes. It's changed now, the rules have changed, but still, there was a period of time where I got the disability pass and I got to like skip the lines at Disneyland, so that was super cool. Most importantly, the thing that diabetes has given me is connections with other people. I now have this thing that I can bond with people over that, like, we might have absolutely nothing else in the whole world in common, but we have something that's so central to who we are as people in common, which is so cool. To have that sense of community and that underlying knowledge that these people understand me and these people understand what those moments that feel very scary or feel very isolating or feel very lonely to me are things that these other people can relate to too, which is really cool. Another thing that type 1 diabetes has given me is my health. It's taught me a lot about ways that I can improve my health. I've like learned a lot about being in tune with my body. I feel like type 1 diabetes has also like really strengthened my bonds with the people that are close to me, with my friends and my family, because not only do we connect on all of these other aspects of life, but they also are invested in knowing about my health and they're invested in helping me. I'm very lucky, like I said, to have a great support system around me who check in with me and want to learn with me. I feel like it's made like my bonds with all these people that I know and love even stronger, which is so cool because they like care about me and they want to like know about those things, which I think is super neat. I love teaching people about type 1 diabetes. I am not an expert. I am not a doctor. Probably should have said that at the beginning of this video, but you know, I do have a lot of information about living with type 1 diabetes. It's actually really cool for me to talk about, and it's actually like super fun for me to educate people about it. I love people asking me questions because it's something that's so essential to who I am and it's so important to me, and it's such a big part of my day-to-day life that it's like really cool to get to share that with people. Even if it's not somebody that I'm super close to or know that well, if it's something that they want to know about, like I'm so happy and excited that I get to tell people about it and also bring more awareness to it. I know this sounds cheesy, but I think the other big one for me is having type 1 diabetes living with it for 10 years. I talked about this in my last video. It's really taught me a lot about myself and my own strength and my own fierceness and my own ability that I honestly didn't know I had, which I think is really cool and very special, and that's something that I am so grateful for. It is difficult, but at the same time, it's made me the person I am today. And for that, I am very, very grateful. If you guys have any specific things that people have said to you that's super annoying, or like a pet peeve that I forgot about, please leave it in the comments below so that we can all share and swap and laugh together. But also, I would love to share all the positive things too. If you don't have type 1 diabetes and you're watching this video either because you really enjoy watching me talk for an extended period of time, or because it's a topic you're curious about, then I would love to hear your questions. Not the kind of questions we've talked about that are invasive and rude, but questions, if you have any, about ways that you can improve somebody else's life that you might meet at some point. But also if there's just informational questions that you have, I would love to answer them, or maybe other people in the community, we can all answer them for you. So I think that'd be really cool. And if you want to see more videos about my life with type 1 diabetes, maybe like what a day on set is like having type 1 diabetes, I don't know, whatever it would be, you can also leave that in the comments. If you like this video and you enjoyed watching it, then please like it. And if you want to see more videos like this or any other ridiculous stuff I have going on this channel, then subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you actually, hopefully, probably know when I post a video, because that's kind of the whole point, right? Anyway, Lady's not going to allow me to sit here any longer. She wants to go play. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye! You're being so cute, Lady.